Hi, everyone. This is Zach Rubin, and I'm joined today with Marissa Lee, who will be speaking today about how to get clarity and get ahead in your career. Thank you so much for joining with us today, Marissa.
Thank you.
I'll give some background information for the webinar today and then introduce Marissa, who can jump right in. There will be time for questions, so please click the Ask a Question button below the video to ask your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll have time for them at the end of the presentation. Marissa has also provided a workbook that goes along with the presentation. You can download that from the resources section of the page below the video, and the workbook will be referred to throughout the presentation, so you may want to download your copy now. And Marissa is a career activist, a global HR leader, and author with a unique approach to helping us rethink the relationship between employer and employee. For the last 10 years, she has combined her passion for people and processes to provide strategic business solutions for Fortune 500 companies in the fashion and chemical industries. Marissa is the founder of SOW EVOLVE, a career and business consulting firm which helps organizations and individuals address contemporary culture and career ownership issues. And I'll let Marissa take it away from here.
All right. Thank you, Zach. And welcome to everybody here to learn a little bit more about how to get clarity and move ahead in your career. So I'm really excited about chatting with you on this today. We will focus in on three things. One, the EVOLVE methodology that is going to change your mindset on how you look at your career. Two, three components to gaining clarity as you continue to move forward within your career. And then the third thing is how to leverage clarity to write your career vision statement. So by the end of this session, you will have information on all these different things and walk away with actionable items for you to take your career to the next level. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So I love this picture. And not just because of my bow tie shoes and my green dress, but it was because it was right when my book, Why I Broke Up With My Company, was about to come out. And I was already thinking about creating SOW EVOLVE and building that and moving to the next level in my career journey. So I had the clarity around what I was going to do, where I was going next, and the excitement was there. But before I got to this point, I want to take you back in time to give you some insight as to how did I get to where I am now and how clarity played a role in that. So in 2009, I was a recent graduate from The Ohio State University. So shout out to all the Buckeyes out there, if there are any on the line. But I graduated right after the 2008 recession. So as you can imagine, it was very difficult to find a job. And I thought I was going to be able to find a role just having graduated from an esteemed university. I had three majors: HR, logistics, and operations management, and I minored in English as well. So I felt that I had the educational background, I had some limited experience, and surely I was going to be able to find an opportunity. That did not happen immediately. So for the rest of 2009, I was searching and looking for a job to no avail. And it went into 2010, and I was still looking for full-time roles, and I was not able to find anything. So I had some decisions to make. I could continue to look for those full-time positions, or I could pivot. And prior to that point, I was just only thinking about full-time roles. So I knew I needed to get some experience to be able to position myself, to make sure I would be able to compete with other people. So I started looking at contractor roles and seasonal roles. And prior to that, I didn't want to do that. However, I'm like, I need to build this experience. And in that process, I was able to secure a seasonal role doing high volume recruiting. But with that company, I looked to do whatever I could there to really continue to understand the HR profession and learn more about what I wanted to do in the long run. So in that process, I was able to get more clarity around wanting to look at exploring the HR space in more to get more insight around that, as opposed to going in to say, I just want to be a generalist or I just want to work in compensation. And that helped me to be able to focus in on what roles I wanted to look for. So in that process, I started to look for full-time trainee roles, HR trainee roles. And with that position, it was going to allow me to be able to see HR in totality and give me a chance to hone in a little bit more on what area I wanted to focus in HR. Was it being a business partner? Was it working in the operations side of HR? Or was it getting into the center of expertise space? So that time after school and not being able to find a job helped me really key in on why clarity was important and how clarity could be used to find a position. Because after I did the seasonal role, I came back for a second season, was able to find a full-time trainee role. And from there, the sky was the limit. My career just took off from going from being a trainee to having an expat assignment in Germany, from leading a legal entity carve out to now, moving on to being a career coach, business owner, and a published author. So clarity is key, and clarity definitely helped me to move from being an unemployed graduate to where I am today. So I wanted to give you a little bit of my background so you can understand why I'm really passionate about people getting this clarity before they move forward in their career search and building their careers, because it's a foundational piece for you being able to do that. So I like to group people into two types of categories when I'm connecting with them to understand where their mindset is. Are you a career seeker? Are you a job seeker? And there's no right or wrong between the two. It's, if you're a job seeker, that's fine. If you're looking for that immediate role to go into and you're ready to transition there, that's okay. And if you're a career seeker and you have the end game in mind and you're building things out and you have that connected to your purpose, that's okay as well. But it's important to understand which bucket you kind of fall in and what's leading your search and what's leading your career. So then it helps to set the appropriate expectations. It helps to make sure you are exhibiting the appropriate behaviors, and it helps you navigate through those different processes, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So make sure we are all aligned on the differences between the two. And this is where you want to pull out your workbook from the Resource Center and fill in some information, just the differences between career seekers and job seekers. So from a career seeker standpoint, they are more focused with growth mindset. They have the long-term focus on what's that end game, where am I trying to get to, while the job seeker is more fixed. I need to get a job and that's what I'm looking for, and I need something to take place immediately. Going back to the career seeker side of things, it's more of a professional journey. Where are you working towards? And you become an avid continuous learner to be able to support that professional journey, so you have the skills and abilities to be able to get to where you're trying to get, and it becomes a life. So it's your life work. While as a job seeker, it's more of that professional pursuit. You leverage your current skills and you secure the job that you're looking for. So one is more purpose, passion, and sense of fulfillment driven, while the other is more money, instant need driven. And like I said, it doesn't matter which one you pick. You can be a career seeker and have moments within your career where you're more of a job seeker and job focus. So there are ways to leverage both and use both, but it's just important to have that understanding about where you fall on that spectrum. So to assist you with that, I want to read some statements to you. And in your workbook, you will see these statements and you will see boxes where you will be able to list and check which one. Are you a career seeker or are you a job seeker? And the more that you have, the more likely you fall under the career seeker aspect, and the less, more job seeker. So I'm going to read those off, and hopefully you're following along with me during this time. I am looking to grow in my career. I have and will invest in my continuous learning. I make decisions that benefit my career in the long run. I am intentional about the roles I take. I do everything necessary to position myself for key roles. I consider purpose and fulfillment in every decision I make. I'm excited and understand the value I bring to an organization. I have and will continue to address behaviors that won't help me succeed. I know my target and position. So these are different statements. Oh, and one more, sorry. I am optimistic about my career and sorry. I am optimistic about my career and my career growth and believe I can reach my end goal. So these are the different things that I would like for you to reflect on. And if you say yes, that's more the likelihood that you are a career seeker and you have the career seeker mindset. If not, it's more that you're the job seeker. And with that understanding, that will help you as you go to look for new opportunities and set expectations, as I mentioned earlier. So now we're going to shift to the EVOLVE methodology. And this is something that I have used throughout my career and have helped other people as they look to navigate through their career to be able to accelerate it and to fulfill their purpose. So it is consists of being able to evaluate, vocalize, own, liberate, validate, and elevate. So you find all those different things come together to accelerate your career growth. And in conjunction with that, it's focusing in on getting clarity, confidence, and championing yourself as you go forward. So within each of these sections, with clarity, you have to look at your mindset, your behaviors, and your career vision. For confidence, there's the focus in on skills, abilities, experience, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, networking, interviewing, and having those in place so you are presenting yourself in the best way. And then championing yourself. So being an advocate for yourself and getting advocates. Focusing in on continuous growth, understanding organizational politics and how that plays into your career growth, and really having that full understanding. And that's the EVOLVE methodology in totality. But today we're going to focus in on the clarity aspect. And we're going to start by seeing the difference between the traditional approach and the EVOLVE approach. When it comes to the traditional approach of what people think about their careers, sometimes the focus is more on just applying for jobs, hoping for opportunities to find you. You either get focused on pursuing money or you let money lead your job search process. And you let the company drive your career growth and employee experience. And you rely more heavily on the organization to do that as opposed to you owning your career. And that's where the EVOLVE approach comes into play, help you get clarity so you can be intentional about the roles you pursue and help you network to position yourself for roles on job boards and on the within the secret job market, because every position is not posted. So a lot of the roles are actually found via networking because individuals find out about the opportunities that are not going to appear on the job boards. And I want you to be able to get access to that as you continue on with your career growth and development. You'll be able to negotiate your value and then advocate for continuous growth to achieve your career aspirations. So that's where leveraging this EVOLVE model and focusing in on clarity is going to help you lay the foundation you need as you continue to go forward. So let's start with mindset. So I'm very big on getting the definition and aligning on the definition before going into trying to achieve something, because you have to understand what you're trying to do before you can actually achieve it. So from a mindset perspective, that is being defined as the established set of attitudes held by someone. So whatever you believe is what you're going to be able to achieve. So whatever you're thinking up here, that's what you're going to manifest. So mindset is a big part of being able to get to where you're trying to go within your career. And the first thing you have to do is change the headline. So what I mean by that is when you think about it from the context of a setback versus a comeback. The setback is when, you know, like the challenge is happening and you're in that space and you focus in on, well, this didn't work out the way I wanted to, and I thought it was going to happen this way, but it didn't. And you focus in more so on the setback as opposed to how the setback is positioning you for the comeback of, yes, this thing happened, but I learned these different things, and now I'm going to be able to achieve this thing because of going through that experience. So being able to focus in on how your situation, whether it's positive or something that's more challenging, is positioning you for the intended outcome that you want to have. So don't get stuck in the setback. Focus on how you'll be able to come back. The second thing I would say, you have to change your vocabulary. A lot of people get stuck on, I can't do something, or I won't be able to do this, or I failed in this. And those different words and things are limiting. They're going to continue to nurture limiting beliefs and hold you back. So really finding the different vocabulary that you need to remove and key in and focus in on what are you speaking to yourself? How do you speak life into your different situations? So what will you be accomplishing? How can you get something done? And really positioning it and rewording it in that way, because words matter and what you're speaking to yourself matters, because again, going back to what you believe, that's what you're going to be able to achieve. The other point I wanted to make, connect with something bigger. A lot of times when you have it connected to a bigger purpose, when you start seeing the different challenges or things get tough, because it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying that, you know, once you have clarity, everything works. Once you have clarity is the beginning. And then it helps you to navigate through those challenging times a lot better. And it helps you to stay committed to that when you have something bigger that you're working towards. So you don't just, wash your hands with the situation and throw in the towel. So keep that in mind of making sure that you have whatever you're going to do with your career connected to something bigger than just something, but it's bigger where you'll be able to fulfill your purpose. Last but not least, tap into and protect your light. So as you are navigating through and you are looking to stay positive, sometimes that can be difficult. And I have told people, if you need to shut off the TV, if you need to unfollow people online, if you need to get offline, you need to do whatever you need to do to protect your mental space and what you're trying to create and what you're working towards. And sometimes that will require you to cut things and people off. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the person has to be bad or the thing has to be bad. But if it's impacting you from getting to where you need to go, then you have to at least put that on a pause or take a break until you can get to that space where you can manage seeing what they are doing, what they are creating, or if it is something negative, just getting that out of your life. So be okay and give yourself permission to be able to do that as you continue to go forward. Second thing I want to talk to you about in connection with clarity are your behaviors. So the behaviors are the way in which one acts and conducts himself. And I want to focus in on limiting behaviors that will keep you from getting to where you want to go. And you have to be conscious of this because this could be what's actually holding you back. And you have to own that and then put things in place so you can improve on that. So the first one is self-deprecation. So that is an individual who belittles or undervalues themselves. So they're excessively modest. So if, let's say you're working on a project and you did an outstanding job and someone gave you a compliment and then you're like, oh, it's nothing. Accept your compliment. Like, you did what you needed to do to make sure you could knock it out the park. And that is a great opportunity to continue to position yourself for other opportunities. A lot of times people get so modest, like, oh yeah, like, yes, there's the part of the teamwork, but there's the part of the things that you've done. And while you are taking the back seat, the other person is saying, well, thank you, and I appreciate that, and continuing to position themselves. And now they're front of mind when the next opportunity comes up. So you definitely have to be humble, but the being excessively modest can prevent you from getting to where you want to be. Or if you're just downing yourself all the time and in anticipation of somebody giving you some type of feedback, it then starts to impact to where you're trying to go as well. So keep that in mind. Negative Ned or Nancy, the person that is considered excessively disagreeable or pessimistic, nobody wants to be around anybody negative. Just going to put that out there. Everybody wants to be around the fun person, the positive person, the person that is winning, that is looking to get to that next level. And no one wants to be around the individual that's going to always tell you why it's not going to work. You have to get in that space where you're solution minded of, yeah, this may not work, but here's what we can do to get to where we're trying to go. So that gets back into not only behaviors, but your mindset of how you're positioned to navigate through challenges and help people be able to see the solutions where it may not be as obvious. The next mentality or point that you need to think about from a behavior standpoint is victim mentality. And this is one of the ones I struggle with the most when I'm working with people. Like, my tolerance for it is very low. And in being in corporate America and working with a lot of business leaders, their tolerance for this is also very low. So the person who tends to recognize or consider themselves as the victim, and people are always attacking them or always doing things to them, it becomes burdensome, and there's always something there. So being able to really key in on what's something you need to own, and then what are the things other people need to own, and then how do you manage through that appropriately to handle that in a productive way, as opposed to just saying, okay, well, everybody's picking on me. You have to move beyond just the victim space to really get to the solution. So that goes back to that solutions mindset of, this is not the ideal environment I want to be in. How do I get out of that? And if there are things other people need to own, how do I address that in a productive manner versus just kind of kicking back and saying everybody's coming after me? So that's definitely something that individuals have to be mindful of. And the last one I would say is the Cruella de Vil. That's just the mean person. You're the mean guy, mean girl in the workplace, and nobody has something to deal with that either. So if you are that person, stop and really figure out why you feel this way and why are you acting out in this manner, and put some things in place to give people new experiences so you can move out of being classified as this to that team player that you want people to see you as, especially as you continue to try to grow in your career, because these type of behaviors can be derailers in getting to where you're trying to go. So we talked about the different behaviors, but I want to give you some things to keep in mind as you work through these, if you have these or other toxic behaviors. So you have to recognize what the toxic behavior is and own it. So that's the first step. You have to own your part in that, and then understand what triggers these behaviors. And so you're mindful of that when it comes up in the workplace or even in school or as you're working with other people, and then develop a plan and put that plan into action as to, okay, when this situation happens, it triggers this, but I'm going to take this step to manage through this, or I'm going to put myself in this situation versus the situation I keep experiencing over and over again to ensure I'm able to navigate through that. But really put a plan in place that you can stick to and continue to reassess that when when the trigger happens again, how did you navigate through it? Did you handle it better? What things did you do that time versus previous times? If it didn't work this with the new approach, how do you reassess and tweak what you're doing and continue to do that until you see that change? So those are the key things that I really want you to take away from behavior and keep that in mind as you're getting clarity about positioning yourself as you go forward. And the last part is around your career vision and where you want to go as you move forward. And even if you are going back to the original point, if you're a job seeker, you can tweak this and have this what vision you want for your next job you're trying to secure, and you can leverage that. But you're going to have a clear understanding of what you would like to purposefully achieve. So what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want this in-role type of job? What is it going to help you be able to do? How? How are you going to be able to get this accomplished? And how do you combine that together to bring it into fruition? So that's where the career statement comes up. And you want it to be about 3 to 4 sentences where it takes into account what type of experiences you want to have, what and who do you want to impact, where do you want to do your job, what industry, and then what do you want out of your career? So when this is all said and done, what do you want out of your career? Who do you want to impact? What does that future you look like? What are you becoming? What are you yet to be? And really have that conversation with yourself and reflect on that, so then you can materialize that and write that down as to what you will be working towards. And this is critical because it's a great reference point when you do face challenges. It brings you back to, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I need to get through this challenge, because there's something bigger that I have to get to. So definitely take the time to focus in on those things as you continue to go forward. As a wrap up, just some final seeds I want to share with you all. Clarity is not static. So it evolves as you evolve. It will continue to allow you to move to that next level as you get more and more clarity. So even as I've gone throughout my career, the clarity I have today is not the same clarity that I had when I graduated from college. It has definitely transformed and helped me focus in more of, where do I need to continue to hone in? What do I need to continue to improve? Where can I continue to add value? And I leverage that so I can continue to move to that next level. So don't think like once you go through an exercise today, you get clarity today, that's it. You have to continue to evaluate that and see what is necessary for the next phase. Clarity will also help you with understanding your expectations. It's going to increase your intentionality and help you be more accountable for the moves and experiences you have. So the point in even focusing in on the mindset and behaviors, you have to understand your role in this process and how you own that, and how you manage other people as well, just with your understanding of your expectations and how that can lead to different boundaries you need to put in place and make you more intentional about where you work and where you don't work, what roles you take and what roles you don't take. So it's definitely something that will be essential as you continue to go forward. And it's foundational. It starts with clarity. A lot of people who I actually chat with who are frustrated in their careers, they feel stuck. It's because they don't have the clarity. They don't know what they want to do, where they want to go. And a lot of times it always comes back to the clarity piece on, okay, let's start from the beginning and get that foundational understanding of where are you trying to go, what experiences are you trying to have, as you continue to navigate through that. So make sure as you are navigating through your career, you have that clarity, and that will help with some of the challenges you could face if you don't have that. So I'm big on giving homework. I used to want to be a teacher, so I'm big on the homework piece. And I have an ask of you to think about 3 things you will do in the next month to gain more clarity in your career. And I say 3 just to make sure you are putting things in place to move towards your goal of how you want your career to materialize. Or if you're that job seeker and you're looking for your next role, what are 3 things you need to get clarity on to be able to make that happen? So that could look like your job search process. Do you need to change that? Do you need to look at that a little bit differently? So really think about what you need from a clarity point of view and commit. Write down your 3 things and make sure you are following up on getting that. And that starts to create a behavior of looking into what you need to have in regards to clarity as you continue to go forward within your career. So I definitely hope you got some additional insight and nuggets on how you can leverage clarity, how looking at my career, seeing clarity in action and in real life, from how I grew from unemployed college student to now being a business owner, and still working in corporate America as well. So I hope that was helpful to you. And I want to now open the floor to any questions that you may have around clarity, my career journey, and as you continue to move forward. So thank you for listening to this session today.
Marissa, thank you so much. We have quite a few questions, and people can continue to bring those in with the Ask a Question button as we have some time here, which is great. Maybe the first one that's I'm sure top of mind for a lot of people is just what recommendations would you have as far as behavior change or thinking about clarity in this COVID-19 world that we're living in and all the uncertainty and complexities around that?
Yeah, so from the COVID world, I would definitely tell people to focus in on being resilient and learning the art of the pivot. So being able to understand that these are not normal times. So you're not going to be able to take normal measures. You're going to have to be able to be more flexible. You're going to have to be able to be more open to finding the opportunity because it may not be as visible during this time. And those who understand how to pivot and are more resilient are going to be the ones on the other side of COVID that thrive. And if you look back, and I've done a lot of research around this, just on companies after recessions and those who have thrived, it's those who are usually the quickest to be able to pivot and be able to respond to those current conditions. So I would definitely tell everybody right now, if you're struggling with that, focus in on building that resilience muscle and looking at your processes or where you're trying to grow in your career and getting clarity on the aspect of where you need to pivot and how do you make that happen.
Great. That makes sense, and I'm sure a lot of people have had that thought as well. That need to pivot. We've got another question here, just asking if you're currently have been more of a job seeker. What can you do to become more of a career seeker? And kind of and there's a few questions related to this, and a similar question maybe to ask kind of at the same time is someone's noted that they answered kind of yes and no to different things in the job seeker versus the career seeker category. So they're somewhat sort of in the middle. And they're not quite sure if they should move in one direction or the other in terms of what they're kind of searching for.
Yeah, so first thing is I would say you need to get awareness of why you are currently in the middle, or why are you leaning more towards job seeker versus career seeker. So with those different tenets I listed, are you focused on an immediate job? Are you focused on your like immediate pursuit of something? That's going to help you get more clarity into why you're leaning to one side versus the other. So you have to get an understanding around that before you can understand how do you move in either direction, if you're, or if you're trying to move more towards being the career seeker. So I would say first start there. Once you get that understanding, that's going to help you hone in on what part do you need to focus in on. It could be you don't understand your purpose yet, and you're still on that journey of figuring out what you really want to do. So you're exploring, so you're taking different jobs to say, oh well, I'll figure it out this way. So really honing in on which aspect of the career seeker are you missing, or you're not aligned with, and why you aren't aligned to that. And then that's going to help you be able to understand where you need to key in and focus on that development. Without that insight, I can't tell you which one to actually do. You have to do that part to get that understanding.
Sure, sure. And then, Marissa, we have another question. Someone who recently received a professional degree and has, several opportunities in that vein, but they also have a passion for music, and so they kind of think that now, sort of the time, if they're going to try to pursue that, they should be putting themselves all into that. And then there's some family pressure on, well, you should get, the stable job and all of that. Just any thoughts on kind of that, balancing what's maybe a clear, a more traditional career path, or perhaps a less competitive career path with more of a passion career path?
So I'm smiling because I'm also big into music. I'm a songwriter as well. And so I finally released my first song when my book came out. And I had been working on music for forever. And it was like, when am I ever going to get a song out? So whoever wrote that in, I can feel you over here. What I would say to you is you have to you have to make that call for yourself. You have to get a feel for what is leading you to, in what direction you're working towards, and put a plan in place and be okay with whatever result comes with that. So if you go down the path of music and you blow up and we're listening to your songs on the radio, and you have to be okay with that. Or if it doesn't work out, but you still are doing what you love to do. So that's the difference between the passion and the purpose. If you find a way to be able to connect your passion and purpose, that's the ideal environment, right? Because then that gives you that push to continue to go beyond just the, like, this is something I like to do, but here's how this is really going to influence and make that impact, regardless of if I'm making money, regardless of, if I continue to grow in this space. I'm still committed to doing this, and this is why I want to do that. For me, I am definitely more, I take risks, but they are calculated risks. So I looked for the space of, how do I combine all the things that I like to do? And so going back to the point of my song coming out, I wrote my book while I broke up with my company. I wrote a song called The Breakup Song. I used that as a promotional with my book and combined it into together. And I looked at ways to be able to build in the songwriting space while I was building my corporate career. Because one, you also have to be able to fund that. It takes money. So I'm more being more on the calculated risk side. I look to position of, how do I make sure I can still nurture the things that I love to do and not lose that, but still grow in the other areas and nurturing the passions I have there, because I also love HR. So to that person who's just got their professional degree, I would guess that that's still a passion of yours as well. So I would look to try to see if there's any way to combine it. If not, because you don't want to have too many priorities going on, you have to really reflect and say, where do I want to invest my time? what is it's going to be more meaningful to me. And if it's all said and done, it works out. If it doesn't, I'll be okay with that. And that should be what helps to lead you down that path.
Great.
But I hope the music comes out. Either way.
That's great. And it sounds like the path of trying to do both and sort of balance that out, it's also an alternative. It doesn't necessarily have to be all or nothing in a lot of these cases.
Right. But one's going to take priority.
Right.
And you have to be okay with that. And I was okay with building my HR career because once I got my trainee role, I was in the process of working on an EP. And that EP went away because I moved to another location. I went all in on my job, and it was heartbreaking because I was like, I'm like almost there. So it's almost coming out. But I had to make a choice as to what is really the most important for me. And for me, I feel like I made the right choice. Everything happens for a reason, and everything happens in right timing. And last year was the right timing for my music to come out and continue to build on that.
Great.
Yeah.
We have another great question here. Someone thanking you for the presentation, so that's always great. But they're asking about external obstacles like HR, where if you want to move into a different direction, which you might have gained clarity during your career path on, how do you get past the attitude that if you didn't do something before, you won't be able to do it now in the role that you are applying for, even if it's aligned, but maybe a little bit different than your past experience?
Yeah, you take that question away. So you look for the transferable skills that you have that will be able to support you in this new role. So in every role, you gain skills that's not just only for that particular role. You will be able to leverage them somewhere else, but you have to have the clarity and understanding of what those skills are and how to be able to speak to them in the context of the new role. And you also have to rebrain yourself in connection to that new role. So if your resume is everything, like let's say I'm going to take HR. I have it all HR, but then I'm trying to go into logistics and operations management. They're going to look and say, well, you've only been in HR, as opposed to if, yes, my positions are there, but it has the slant towards how I supported those areas, the things I helped to drive in those areas, and how it would help me make me be more successful there. That's a different story. And then it can't just be your resume. You have to LinkedIn, everything, a total rebranding of who you are and how it connects to that role you're going after.
And I guess another question is, how does the sort of networking and invisible job market, and I realize that may be a whole other webinar, but yes, how does some of that connect to that transition? And especially, there's just a lot of questions about people in one role and wanting to do something else, but the kind of positioning themselves that way with what they've already done is easier said than done.
Yeah, networking, I would say the biggest thing I would tell people is it's not about getting the contact. It's about building the relationship. You have to build relationships because that will make people think about you. That will make people vouch for you. Nobody's putting their name on the line for somebody they met at the happy hour. They want the person that they know your background, what you're doing, and then they can say, oh yeah, I know Marissa, she's worked on this and that, and she's the person you want for this role. And then they're like, okay, well, tell her to apply and go from there. Because 80%, the percentage change. Sometimes it's like 75, sometimes it's 80%, but 80% of the roles are filled via networking, or they're not posted on the job board. So that's a big percentage of positions that you could be missing out on if you aren't connecting with people and building those relationships. And I'm not just saying go just talk to people. You have to be authentic. It has to be genuine. You have to be able to really not look for reciprocity. It's not just the one-sided of, hey, help me get this job, but how can we collaborate? How can I be a part of your community? How can you be a part of my tribe? Like really thinking bigger beyond just, I need a network. It's, I need to build relationships. So that would be the key thing that I would share with everybody on the call to focus in on as you go throughout this journey. Stop just trying to get that contact, but really build a relationship.
Great. And we have another question here just saying time's a valuable asset. Do you have tips for someone who has multiple interests but isn't quite sure on what their passion is, with regards of how to make the most of that time to get closer to discovering that purpose and what that end goal really should be?
Yeah, so for me, I'm very big on checklists because I like checking things off so I can celebrate. And it also helps me to categorize my thoughts of what I need to get accomplished, what am I working towards. And I have books are as well where I write in like ideas or things that I would like to bring to fruition or things that I need to be doing now. So that works specifically for me. You have to discover what is going to help you kind of compartmentalize the things you're working on and working towards. So then that will help you start to make the progress. Because what I see is when people write down, that helps them to break it out, as opposed to when you're just thinking about, oh, I need to do this and that. Usually nothing gets done. And you also need to prioritize where that focus is. So you don't get into this habit where you're doing a lot of different things, but you make a little progress. You want to focus in on what are the key things I need to get done and see it to completion and to the end, or to a point where it's a good stopping point. Then you can start adding other things to it. And I'll give you a quick example. I'm huge into languages. I love languages. I would say I'm the jack of all trades, but I only mastered English. Like I need to master some other things. And that's a quick example of, you don't want to have all of these different things that you are working on and nothing's done, because when people come to talk to you about your resume and where you're trying to go, they're going to want to see your results. What have you gotten done? What can you speak to show that you've been winning? That's what they're going to want to see. So you have to balance your aspirations and getting whatever you need to get accomplished done.
Great. We have a question, maybe to elaborate a little bit more. How do you get out of a victim mentality when you work in an environment when you don't have much agency and you don't feel safe communicating honestly with your team and manager, and can't really be yourself?
Yeah, I would say you need to break up with your company. And this is without understanding like all the details of what's going on. But if you're in the space and you feel like you can't trust anybody, there is no way to continue to, get success, move forward. That means you need to pause and see if that's really the space and environment you need to be in. I have been in toxic environments before, and one made me question and really weighed on my confidence. It made me question, do I really know what I'm doing? And am I really the problem? And so I had to reflect on, well, let me see how I'm interacting in these situations. Then I'm not the problem. They're the problem. And I had to go to an organization that was going to nurture what I bring to the table, who I was, and not try to change me to what they wanted. So that starts getting into culture fit versus culture add. I added to the culture and they weren't ready for that type of change. And so I had to go somewhere else to be able to continue to thrive and grow. And you have to be able to reflect. So that's when it starts getting into things about, well, what do you want in an employer? What don't you want? And if it's not aligned to that, and they are bringing out different aspects of you that you don't like and you need a break from, it may mean you need to move from their organization. But I always challenge people to say, you have to look internally first. What are you contributing to this? Are you the problem? And if not, then you make the other decisions.
Gotcha. An interesting question here. Someone who's in their 70s, they still work full-time as a secretary, and they feel that because of their age, and they've been in the same position for more than 40 years, they're just reluctant to make changes. And just wondering your thoughts on, are there opportunities for people who are, on the further end of their career in that sense? And this person just sort of saying they feel like they need to stay where they are. There's not a lot of opportunity for them, and just asking for any suggestions you might have and any positive input in that particular situation.
Yes, there's the second act. People have second act careers all the time. People go and they retire, and then they start and they do something else. So if you have that interest of wanting to do something else, there are opportunities as long as you continue to position yourself and you have experience. And as I mentioned earlier, how do you take the experience you have and position it for the new opportunity that you would want to go for and look for? And that's what you leverage and you speak to when you're trying to get this new role that you're going after, versus staying in the comfort zone and space. You could stay there, but if you have that desire, and I think if you're asking the question, there's a piece of you that wants to try something else, and the possibilities are there. It's just you have to position yourself for it.
Great. Fun question here. If you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be and why?
I would say be patient, because I was definitely like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm going to do this, I want to do that. And that can push you into trying to make decisions or force things instead of letting things happen naturally, because it was going to come anyways, but it could have came a lot easier versus the path on some of the things that I ended up taking. So I would tell myself to be patient, but still keep your fire and passion that you have in navigating through the situations, for sure.
Great. And then someone asking if their resume has big gaps, what advice would you give on kind of building the story around the experience, more of the experience focus as opposed to the chronology, perhaps?
I would say be honest about the gaps, and what were you doing during those gaps? Were you, volunteering places? Were you doing, what other things were there? Because like I said, I'm still in corporate. I still review resumes, and those are when I see a gap, I'm going to ask, well, why do you have this gap? And if somebody's not being upfront with me, I'm going to know they're not being upfront. And so I'm going to continue to probe and dig till I get to the answer, or I will say the person not getting, because a lot of times people try to go around it as opposed to this is what was going on. And most people can deal with that. When you say this is what was happening, this is what I did during this time, or this is how I overcame if you had a challenge. And that speaks better than trying to avoid it. So that would be my recommendation of focusing in on what were you doing during that time and being upfront about it.
Great. Someone asking, can you please expand a little bit on the concept of connecting with something bigger?
Yeah, so from the standpoint of what's your purpose? What's your why? So why are you doing whatever you're doing? Why do you want this end goal position? What is that going to help you be able to fulfill? And how is it going to help you impact people? How is that fulfilling your purpose? For me, my purpose is to be able to help organizations and people be able to realize, how do they own this experience that they're going through? It's not other people, they're part of the experience, but you own it. So how do I help them be able to do that? And then through that, that helps to create a different workplace. That helps to create different interactions. That helps to drive their career in a different way. That's how I got into the space of career activism, as opposed to you're just going to a job. And there's a difference to that. So when you have that bigger insight around that, that's how I ventured into a consultant business, because yeah, I can do that for one company, but how do I take this message broader so I can impact more people? And that's what keeps me going while I'm working my 9 to 5, which I say 7 to 11, and building a business at the same time. And that takes a lot of work, and it's a lot of working my day job, then it go into my business to do things for that. But what keeps me going is there's a greater purpose. I need to be able to get this message out to more people versus one place. So when you have that ingrained in there, that's going to continue to help you push through when some days you really don't want to. Because some days I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do this today, but I have to. But I'll also say with this, and even though it's not connected, you have to put in some self-care and put some boundaries in place as you are balancing through that and navigating through, so you don't burn yourself out.
Here's a very honest question, and I'm curious for your thoughts on it. Someone's saying when they looked at the job description for the job they have now, they thought they would love it, but now that they're in it, they actually hate it. And they're wondering, how do you figure out when you're looking at future job posts if it's actually a good fit? And because of how they feel about their current job, they're thinking about making a career field switch, but they just don't feel that confident, I guess, in that clarity based on some of that past experience. So could you speak a little on that?
Sure. The job description is just one piece. And sometimes the job descriptions are written well, and sometimes they're not. So it's a toss up on whatever you're going to get with the job description and the job posting, because they try to make the posting as attractive as possible to whoever's coming in. But the interview is where you really hone in and ask the questions you need to ask to get a realistic understanding of what is going to be required for me in this role. What responsibilities will I have? What expectations are they going to have? What is the culture like? Sometimes it's not just the position or the role, it's the environment. So the job may be great somewhere else, but in the place you're working at is just not the best. So you have to really dig deep and understand, what do you want out of a job? What do you want out of a company? What do you want as you continue to go forward? And then as you're going through that evaluation process, then you can check that out. Because when you're interviewing, it goes both ways. It's not just the employer. You, as the candidate, should be interviewing them as well and really getting insight as to, what am I about to walk into? And if you get the red flags, then you know what you need to do.
Great. Marissa, maybe time for one more question, and then we'll wrap up. Someone just asking if they have very few or minimal transferable skills for a new career path. Should they go back to school, even if they've already, maybe have multiple degrees and spent a long time in school already to get to where they are now?
Yeah, I mean, I would never not say don't go to school, because I'm a big proponent of education. But what I will say is you have to have the clarity before you go back to school. That's expensive. So you want to make sure that if you're going to spend that money, that you're going to get the return on that investment. So what I usually tell people is, can you get the experience some other way? I'm big on the job type of training, and really getting that real world experience. Because even once you get the degree in the books, people are still going to say, well, how did you do that in corporate? How did you do that in higher ed or whatever industry you went into? So what I would say is, I would look to try to get additional responsibilities in the role that I'm in, or try to do a lateral move to the role that I want to be into. And that's where you leverage development dialogues and having conversations with your supervisor to share your career aspirations and say you're interested in trying something else. And that way it gets it on their radar, and a project may come up. Then you can jump on a project. There's a lot of different ways you can get experience and develop skills without going back to school. I would tell people to go back to school if it's a clear gap in you being able to perform the duties of that role. But if you can develop it, definitely develop it on the job. You're getting paid for it at the same time, and now you're positioning yourself for that. But if you do decide to go back to school, look to see what tuition reimbursement your organization has and get them involved and invested in your career growth and development, and make that business case to show, if I go back and get this degree, this is how I'm going to be able to leverage this in the workplace. Because it goes back to that reciprocity. If they're investing in you, how are they going to be able to leverage that at their organization? Or are you going to take that and then run and go somewhere else? So these are the different things that are thought about when those types of questions come up. But first, see if you can get the experience, unless you really, really like just going to school. And other than getting another degree, there's also courses you can take. So look and see what courses may be out there that can get you to the same thing, or a certification that you can leverage as well as you go down that path.
Great. Marissa, thank you so much. There's a lot of questions we weren't able to get to, a lot of things here, and a lot of just, kudos for the presentation and sharing how much people have gotten out of it. So thank you so much for joining with us, and thank you to all of the viewers for joining us today. Definitely a lot of great insight, especially in a time when career clarity is harder than ever in a lot of cases.
Yes.
So thanks again, Marissa, and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thank you, everyone. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to continue the conversation. Bye.
Thank you, Marissa.